Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into the ancient Vedic texts to solve what I like to call the ultimate philosophical murder mystery. Namely, if astrology is real, did determinism just completely kill human free will? It is a massive question, right? So many people look at systems like Jyotish, Vedic astrology, and just assume, well, if a birth chart maps out my life, my choices literally don't matter. But today, we're going to completely dismantle that assumption. We're going to explore the true architecture of human agency hidden right there in these ancient sources.
A man can do as he wills, but he cannot will as he wills. That quote from Arthur Schopenhauer perfectly sets up the philosophical wall we're about to climb together. It really highlights the universal problem of our pre-programmed desires. Schopenhauer, who was completely outside the Vedic tradition, hit on the exact same dilemma the ancient sages did. Think about it. We might be able to act on our wants, sure, but we don't really seem to be able to choose those wants. We just wake up and boom, the desire is already there, totally gripping us.
So we really have to ask ourselves a pretty core question here. If a birth chart can supposedly read our future, and we can't even choose our own desires from a blank slate, does that mean our agency is entirely dead? Are we just, actors reading a script handed to us at birth?
Section 1. The Fatalist Trap.
Let's kick things off by completely dismantling this common charge against astrology, this idea that a fixed future makes human effort entirely pointless. If you look at the Bhagavad Gita's 5-factor model of action, destiny, which is called deva in Sanskrit, is only 1/5 of the causal pie, just 20%. This utterly destroys the 100% fatalism myth right out of the gate. Every single completed act requires a body, an agent, instruments, effort, and destiny. So an astrology that reads destiny, it's really only reading 20% of any outcome's causal budget. In fact, the ancient texts literally call a person a fool if they think destiny is the only doer. But they also call them a fool if they think the self alone is the doer. It's all about balance. And then there's the remedial paradox. The massive ancient literature on remedies proves that karma is actually highly changeable. I mean, why on earth would you prescribe medicine for an incurable world, right? The classical texts outline practices like japa, which is formalized repetition, and homa, where you surrender karma to the fire before life even delivers it. Then you have dana, a specific, pure kind of giving to counteract our natural tendency to grasp, and vrata, which are these intentionally chosen small denials. Honestly, if the future was just some locked, unchangeable script, this massive toolkit wouldn't even exist. The very fact that this paradox is there proves that human effort, through these specific actions, can actively alter how karma gets delivered. Section 2. The color of will. So, moving past the fatalist trap, we really need to understand that our willpower doesn't just pop up from a blank slate. The ancient texts explain that our resolve arrives, basically, pre-colored by 3 gunas: sattva, rajas, and tamas. These function a lot like modern psychology's big 5 personality traits. You have sattva, which is all about clarity and light; rajas, which is passion and motion; and tamas, which is inertia and darkness. The truly radical step the Bhagavad Gita takes here is explaining that volition itself, our very willpower, arrives pre-colored by these mixtures. So going back to Schopenhauer saying we can't will as we will, the Vedic texts completely agree. Your desires and aversions are just part of your psychological field. They show up already tinted by whatever mix of these 3 gunas happens to be dominating your mind at the time.
Section 3. The Scent of Experience.
Okay, so what exactly carries this pre-colored nature from our past actions straight into our present desires? Well, it's vasana. Vasana is the aggregated disposition of your past actions, but it doesn't act like a single groove. It's more like a deeply carved drainage pattern that dictates exactly how we flow. Think of vasana like a scent. If you keep jasmine flowers wrapped up in a cloth, and then you take the flowers out, that cloth is still going to smell like jasmine. That is vasana. It's the residual fragrance of your past experiences. And here's the kicker. It doesn't show up as a memory. It shows up as an identity. It shows up as you sitting there saying, well, I'm just the kind of person who likes this. When you live that scent from the inside, it's literally indistinguishable from your own nose. It is the invisible momentum driving your desires.
What is incredibly fascinating to me is how perfectly this ancient concept maps right onto modern science. It actually elegantly explains modern anomalies, like Ian Stevenson's famous reincarnation research at the University of Virginia. It shows that Vedic texts actually predict the transfer of implicit
subconscious dispositions, not autobiographical memories. Standard Vedic doctrine says you lose your episodic memory, your autobiography, when you cross lives. What actually survives is the vasana, the implicit memory, your raw competence or disposition. Those kids in Stevenson's studies who actually remember past lives, they're considered rare edge case anomalies in the ancient texts, known as Jyotismara. For the rest of us, the rule is that the past operates on us purely by scent, by disposition, without us remembering a single thing about where we actually picked it up.
Section 4. Reading the Karma Map. With Vasana in mind, we can totally recontextualize what a horoscope actually is. We have to look at the stark contrast between the false mechanical view and the accurate semiotic view. In the semiotic view, planets are simply like a lamp illuminating objects in a dark room. They don't cause those objects to exist. People so often think astrology claims planets are beaming down these magical magnetic rays, forcing you to get a divorce or lose your job. But that's the mechanical view, and the foundational texts of Jyotish explicitly reject it. The discipline is literally called the eye of a Veda. And what does an eye do? An eye perceives, it doesn't cause. The planets are just signs, they're a dashboard. A dispenser of fruit logically requires an earner of fruit, right? So your birth chart doesn't contain your fate at all. It is simply a receipt for past actions you freely made.
Put another way, the chart is a Vasana map, a surveyor's report of where fire sleeps. A birth chart is really just a thermometer reading taken at admission. It maps out the latent dispositions that are going to be activated by the schedule of life's winds. That snapshot of the sky when you're born isn't the cause of your life's fever. You just happen to arrive at the exact moment the sky matches your internal karmic load. The astrological timetable just shows when the winds will blow, fanning those sleeping embers of your vasanas right into flames. And here's the best part. Any prediction made from it comes with a massive, silent, if left untreated, attached to it.
Section 5. The Lever of Attention. So, if the chart is just a map and our desires are already colored by the scent of our past, where exactly is our free will located? Well, take a look at this fascinating feedback loop. It perfectly shows why pure willpower fails. We cannot simply command our desires, but we can control the inputs that build them. It goes like this. You place your attention on something. That feeds the guna, the coloring of your mind. That coloring produces a desire. The desire then forces an action. And finally, that action leaves a vasana, a residue, which then totally dictates where your attention naturally wants to go next time. You can't just shout at step 3, desire, and tell it to stop. The system is a closed loop, and you absolutely cannot command a feedback loop at its output.
This means true free will sits entirely in one precise, narrow location, the placement of our attention and what we choose to consume. Because you literally can't fight the desire once it arrives, you have to intervene at the inputs. You change your food and what your senses take in. You change your company. You practice disciplined repetition. And above all, you fiercely manage the placement of your attention. This is exactly why modern psychology tells us that changing your environment beats relying on raw willpower every single time. You don't choose your wants, but you absolutely choose what you look at long enough for those wants to form. Attention is the supreme lever.
And this brings us to the absolute most empowering realization of all. The one item never mapped by the chart is the witness. This unmapped remainder is never gripped by the chart, and it is the true seat of freedom in this ancient framework. See, the birth chart maps your body, your dispositions, your tendencies, but all of that is just nature. It's all matter. The consciousness watching the chart, the witness who is actually aware of the desires arriving, that is completely unmapped. There is literally no planet for the witness. It wears nothing, it dwells nowhere, and it carries no perfume of its own. And that is exactly why it has the power to observe the sense of your vasana.
So I want to leave you with this final thought, drawn straight from the open questions of the text. If your attention is the only true lever of free will, where are you placing it today? How are you directing your own attention right now to shape the scent of your future? The map is definitely not a prison. It is just a receipt of your past. Your ability to witness and your ability to choose exactly where you place your attention in this very moment is entirely in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and really ask yourself, where will you place your attention next?